Hey there. Wanted to come on here today and I wanted to talk about achieving a greater you. So, this week I got my wisdom teeth taken out and it's kind of been painful, but it's kind of allowed me to reflect on purpose and growth and self-improvement. So, I wanted to come on here today and talk about that. In part to this book I'm reading called Do Hard Things by Steve Magnus, I've kind of put together a little piece on something that makes a lot of sense to me and that hopefully I can convey to you in a way that makes sense. So, achieving a greater you. It's about you and you alone. When it comes to your success, you must realize that it is only as powerful as what you become on the journey toward it. It has to come from within and who you are. It does not have to make sense to anyone except for you. So you have to master your inner voice. You have to own that voice in your head. And first, I think we need to understand that we have two types of inner dialogue. And these two are integrated and confrontational. Integrated is a self-talk that's less of a debate where there's a winner or a loser, but more about working through a scenario, taking on different viewpoints, trying to work it on, practicing how you might respond, and navigating your way through them. Then when there's two voices competing for a so-called win, this is our confrontational voice, where it serves as more of a negotiation. Now, all these voices tend to serve a different and unique perspective. These voices can be positive, negative, supportive, detrimental, excited, calming, and each voice, they all compel to give us a distinct message. They can push us towards different behavior. Some will urge us, some will inform us, some motivate or distract us. So what I'm trying to get here is saying, but by recognizing that we have these voices in our head and what actually goes on in our mind during a challenge, we can prepare for and handle what arises. We can use this inner voice to our advantage because our inner voice acts as a safety mechanism, translating our inner world into something we can process and deal with instead of something that we are trying to ignore and avoid. Because we have control of it and we have to engage with it in the appropriate manner. Not to fight it off, but to listen to it. And I think the main thing that we mistakenly do as human beings is try to be like, oh, like I'm tough, I'm gonna tough this out, and I'm not gonna listen to this voice because it's weak. It's weak to have emotions. Well, I'm here to say that that is not how we do hard things and not how we process through the events that happen in our life, right? I think that it's about paying attention to those voices and making adjustments to overcome them. Not just to blindly push through them, but by having the patience and taking the time to see what works in the moment. Sometimes that means ignoring that voice in our head. Sometimes that means we have to face it. But you need to come from a place of honesty, because when it comes to our inner voice, there is no fake it till you make it. You cannot lie to yourself, because we know at the end of the day what's right and what's not. You can't say you're not. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to ignore this, because deep down inside, you're still going to think about that. Now, there aren't good voices or bad voices, just some we need in the moment and others that we might not need. In this response, I wanted to shift on how we can keep a steady mind and rein in on these voices. I feel like a lot of the time, even in myself, it can be pretty unclear. But a good way to figure out these voices is to process through them, to accept them, not to fight them, as I was saying, right? To respond instead of react, to expand instead of constrict. So this question remains, how can we keep a mind steady? And first thing I have to say is to pay attention, embrace reality, and create space. Now, pay attention, right? We have to understand that in our brain, we have our prefrontal cortex and our amygdala. The amygdala is more of a warning thing. It's like hyperactive and it's like, oh, like this is wrong, or this is wrong. Our prefrontal cortex is saying, hey, chill out, it's fine. And so when we start to pay attention, when something happens to you, really think about it. Think about how it makes you feel. Think about, you know, if it's going to be okay. Try to use that integrated voice and be like, hey, like, this is how we're going to process through it. We're going to accept that, hey, this is what our body's telling us. It may be important, and if it's important, hey, let's do something about it. It may be something that it's like, oh my goodness, this doesn't even matter. So just let it go. I think that there's a fine line of, knowing when to act, knowing when not to act. And I think it comes from embracing reality and creating space. So the two things that are coming next, right? Embrace reality. Start seeing things for what they are. Start accepting things for what they are and loving them for what they are. There's a lot of things that we just can't change in life. A lot of things that we just have to take and try to extract beauty in them. And in that, I think embracing reality is extremely important, because when it comes to your self-talk, there is no fake it till you make it, as I was saying earlier, right? It has to come from within. It has to be deep, authentic, and it's you. So the way to pay attention and embrace reality is spend some time alone in your head, And I think that's a really good point. And that's something that I like a lot, to spend time alone. And I always talk about it in my videos, but get to know who you are. I think that acceptance creates space, allowing us to let sensation float away and evaluate and reframe it. It's a sensation of, oh, like, this is uncomfortable. Like, this sucks. I know this sucks. But this is normal. This was to be expected. And it's kind of that mode of keeping from freak out, right? I like to think about it like when I run, right? I'm running, I'm in a workout. I'm like, hey, like, this hurts. That's okay. I know what I'm capable of. I'm able to appraise who I am, my skills, assess, what's going on, assess my body. I've been here before. I practice. And that way, I'm able to pay attention to my body, embrace the reality, and in turn, create space so that I can use my inner voice to my knowledge, to my advantage. And that's what it's about. And that's what I'm trying to say. Now, spending time alone is also very important, I was mentioning. Not that I say, oh, like, you have to spend time in isolation, like solitary confinement. No. But getting used to being alone in your head. Because it's such an important foundation on growth and self-improvement. And most of us are horrible at it, always trying to resort to distractions. When we're alone with our thoughts, everything is amplified. The apparent power behind the feelings, thoughts increase severfold. In an increasingly distractible world, we're slowly losing the ability to sit with our thoughts and experiences. When our inner self becomes foreign, we become hyperactive to anything it says. So get time to know yourself. Get time to be familiar with who you are, your triggers. What makes you happy? What makes you upset? Notice what you are. Notice your sensations. Notice your good habits. Notice your bad habits. Don't try and ignore who you are. Embrace who you are. Love who you are. But at the same time, no, don't judge your thoughts. You're thinking for a reason. We need to develop the ability to be comfortable in our own head, to prevent to defaulting towards filling that space by grabbing our phone and letting our mind wander uncontrollably. Distraction takes such little effort. It's easy to rely on it as a strategy. When we distract ourselves, we're just running from ourselves. So one thing I like to do is go for walks alone. Oh, I'm going to do the dishes, leave my phone downstairs. Spend that time alone. Talk to yourself. Be familiar with yourself. Driving to work, phone's off. I'm saying, hey, what's going on? How are we doing? What went right today? What went wrong today? What are we going to do tomorrow to be a better person? And it's that's creating space, because you're actually training your mind to learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that's what it's about. It's working through those things, and it's embracing the reality, the discomfort, and using it to your advantage so that you can continue to grow. Now, my last point here, because this video is running long, equanimity in our mind. Now, the Oxford English Dictionary defines equanimity as a mental calmness, composure, evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. This is very important. In your patience possesses ye your soul. And that is such a beautiful quote. Creating space, being tough, and responding instead of reacting are all forms of equanimity. Embracing, and that includes embracing reality. It's the ability to keep your mind steady so that you can choose how to respond. Equanimity is a cultivation of mindfulness and observation, of not pursuing one purpose with blinders on, but constantly being able to be open to new information, constantly seeking wisdom and an honest awareness of reality, constantly monitoring your progress and impact on your own personal growth, as well as the impact on others, radiating warmth and openness as you encounter the inevitable stressors of life. And so that's achieving a greater you. It's being familiar with who you are. It's taking the time to get to know yourself, to get to love yourself, to come from a place of honesty and humility, to know that we are every day striving towards becoming a little bit better, and that is truly all we can do. So we do it, we fall, but we get right back up. We pay attention, we embrace how we're feeling, and we process through it. Sometimes that means, hey, I'm gonna listen to this voice. Sometimes it's okay. But just keep going. Keep being kind to yourself. Keep being patient to yourself, and treat yourself as someone you would want to spend time with. Love yourself.